Murdered MP Jo Cox's husband has spoken about his struggle with her death and said every amazing moment he shares with his children is tinged with sadness. Brendan Cox is preparing to spend his second Christmas without his wife, who was shot and stabbed to death by a Nazi sympathiser in Leeds in June 2016. "The thing I find the hardest, the thing I wrestle with the most, is what Jo is missing out on," he said. In an interview with The Sun on Sunday, the 41-year-old described taking his children Quilai, 6, and Lejayla, 4, to see Matilda the musical. He said, "That moment of the kids' wide-eyed awe and wonder was beautiful to see. But all of those amazing moments are tinged with sadness because I love who my kids are, what they're experiencing and their joy in life, but I also know that their mother is missing out on all of it." Mr. Cox said the shock of losing Jo insulated him and kept him bussed in the first year after her death, and that living without her is getting harder rather than easier. He misses her most when he thinks about all the plans they had together. "I don't have anybody to make that plan with anymore, and that's very stark," he said. Asked if he had considered counseling, Mr. Cox said he prefers to deal with his pain in his own head, in his own way. But he said he never felt alone because of his children. Jo Cox had been Labour MP for Batley and Spey, the Yorkshire constituency in which she was born, for just over a year when she was killed on June 16, 2016, in the middle of the EU referendum campaign. She was 41, energetic, smiley, compassionate, a wife, and mom to children then aged 5 and 3. The horror of her death defies comprehension. Thomas Mair, a 52-year-old loner and Nazi sympathiser, riled by her support for refugees, shot her outside her constituency surgery, then stabbed her repeatedly with a dagger, saying, "Britain first. Britain will always come first." Jo's last words, to her 2 assistants, were typically selfless: "Get away, let him hurt me. Don't let him hurt you." Brendan, 38, recalls that awful day when his life changed forever, the call from Jo's assistant telling him she had been attacked, his race to catch the next train from the family's home in London. Then the dreadful finality of the news from Jo's sister, Kim, as the train travelled north: "I'm sorry, Brendan. She's not made it." Even as he confronted the unimaginable reality of his wife's death, Brendan knew she would want him to envelop their children in love, and unite the country against the hatred that killed her. First, he had to break the news to Quilai and Lejayla, by then in the care of his parents in Reading, and still unaware of their mum's death. Overwhelmed by the dreadful enormity of the task, he first sought advice from an expert on child bereavement. He explained they needed to process the fact that their mum was never coming back, "So I knew I must soften the truth or dress it up in a mystical way that would confuse them," he says. They had to understand the finality of it, but it's hard when you're a very little. I find it hard myself. When I told them, it was almost unbearable to end the charmed innocence of their lives.